I'm gonna let Anuncia introduce herself. Go ahead. Tell the people who you are.
I am Dr. Stafford, psychotherapist and professor, and I'm here to talk about depression and whatever the hell else comes up.
Exactly. No, so I brought her over here because I think I was just, what I was doing. I don't know how I got down the rabbit hole of depression. I think we was talking about it. Oh, it's me, Jazz, and Amino, just the two people that be here. And we were talking about it, but I couldn't, I don't know, you know me, I don't think I've ever suffered from depression, from my point of view, especially what I read about and everything. I've never known to be in that dark hole. I mean, I've been sad before, obviously, everybody has, but I don't think I've ever experienced it for myself. So it was me talking to Jazz about it and talking to other people about it, and I can't understand the mind of somebody that's depressed. And I just read the book of like 31 Days into a Depressed Mind, and it was me reading and just understanding like what goes through a person's mind, because he had to write like 500 words every day, or just tried to write it for 31 days straight. It took him like 3 months to do it, but I was just seeing like the thoughts that go into his head. And also I had watched this, there's this movie on Netflix that just came out, it's called Son.
No, I haven't.
So it's kind of the same thing. White man, white female have a kid, blah, blah, blah. They end up getting a divorce. The kid is living with the mom, acting up, blah, blah. I want to go live with dad, goes live with dad, still acts up, tries to kill himself. They put him in the psych ward, or then after that, they leave him there for a couple months. And after that, he comes home and he kills himself. And you know, during the movie, he was talking about he's going through so much pain. But in my head, I can't understand what the pain is, because the most pressure he had to me was his pops wanted to make sure he does good at school, or just make sure you on your stuff. So when he couldn't explain it to his father either, like what the pain was. He was just saying he was in a lot of pain. And I'm sitting there like, what is so bad about your life? But that's me not understanding the outside in.
Yeah, I mean, that's not uncommon. I think a lot of people handle people with clinical depression in that way. Like, you know, it's not so bad, or, you know, they can't understand how the person is interpreting their experience. And a lot of people, you know, they tend to confuse wherever somebody is in those moments with, oh, you're being over dramatic, or you know, because I don't see the pain, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's the most dangerous part about.
And that's how I am, because I don't get it when it's just like, okay, you know, obviously in society we try to have a couple of things, right? You want the job, you want the car, you want the house, you want the money. Boom, society's fine, or that's what they tell us, right? And you get all that, and then somehow you're still sad. And that's why I'm trying to figure out, like, if you've mastered society, because I think I've learned two things, where it's like I have to master society to make money and to survive, and the second thing is I have to master self. Was like how to deal with the emotions, how to understand relationships and things that are intertwined with society. But I'm sitting here like confused, like I don't know what it is. And then, is it a big thing where like people get the word sad and depression confused, or do they not know? And then what's the difference between clinical depression and someone who's just sad, or how do you go about that?
So I think that's a good question, because there's definitely a difference. But I do think a lot of people mix sad up with clinical depression. But the way that we diagnose clinical depression is you have to have a set amount of symptoms for a particular period of time.
Okay. So, and how long is that particular?
2-week window.
Okay.
Usually particular symptoms that need to be present are things like hopelessness, if you notice an increase or a decrease in appetite, increase or decrease in sleep, you know, noticeable. Of course, there's nothing else going on in your life. You just can't, you know, regulate on your own. Anxiety is also a byproduct of depression as well, depending on what the person's depressed about. And thoughts of suicide. You know, not everybody who has depression has thoughts of suicide, but that is a symptom of it. So if someone is having thoughts of suicide, they're probably experiencing depression or something along the lines, you know. Sadness or depressive symptoms, because not every time that you feel depressed are you having a clinical depressive episode.
Because when I was thinking about it, it was like grief. Of course, you lose somebody. Then, of course, I expect you to be sad for a period of time.
Right. So let's take grief, right? You have something that actually happens that warrants these emotions that everyone can kind of agree, like, I can understand why you're sad at that.
Right.
But if it goes a particular period of time, then it might become complicated bereavement or complicated grief. Right? So it's still those symptoms of sadness or, you know, even some depression there. But the diagnostic process, it takes a particular time. So if anybody is experiencing sad symptoms or feeling low or some of those things I described for longer than 2 weeks, it's good to kind of check in with yourself to say, okay, what's going on?
Right.
You had mentioned some other time before about, like, you understanding chemical imbalance.
Yeah, like that's what, because that makes sense where it's like it's not you that controls it, or it's really not up to you to think a different way. Because even when I was reading the book, which is another thing I want to talk about, is like, does faith have to do a lot of it too? Because he didn't really believe in God. And that's the thing where it's like, does that play a part where what belief system you have? But is that because, are you chemically wired or imbalanced to think that way? Or is it everything, when you talk about a chemical balance, is it just all negative?
No, so it doesn't matter your belief system. People, when I say belief system, I'm talking about like your religious or spiritual beliefs. Because people of all cultures can have depression, you know. Remember I mentioned that hopelessness part though. And some people can say that because they don't have faith or something, this higher power to anchor themselves in, that they feel hopeless. I don't necessarily agree that that is the case all the time, because like if we're talking about chemical imbalances, we're talking about, not to make it too sciencey, but we're talking about, we've got an enzyme in our brain that is responsible for the lack of the happy neurotransmitters, the happy juice. I know you've heard of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. Those are the chemicals that are impacted by this other enzyme that is usually found in people who have depression. So that can be hereditary, genetic. Like, you know, you can, if you have people who have suffered from it in your family, then you just want to make sure you check in with yourself and that you're all good. But there are other ways too. It's not always chemical.
Right. And that's the thing for me. It was like, then, okay, so if we just keep it on chemical real quick, are those people always just going to be on meds for the rest of their life because they don't have those certain enzymes or certain things, or more than likely?
So if it's known, they go to the doctor, get stuff ruled out, and they find that it is a chemical imbalance, medications will be suggested. They don't have to take them, but they have been proven to be healthy and helpful to some people once they find the right medication for them. But know that it doesn't mean that they have to be on medication for the rest of their lives, depending on the severity, because they could do things, working out, eating right, and stuff to help balance their hormones and their chemicals in their body. So it's a lifestyle shift that's necessary when you're fighting against depression, so that you can help your body regulate itself. You know, so no, they don't have to be, but it does depend on the severity.
And then, so after that, we talk about people with just regular depression, right? And I guess more like me asking the tools of people that really get out of it and the ones that don't. Like, I think everybody obviously has a different driving force, but like, what's the factors of somebody who does and then somebody who doesn't get out of it? We're one leading to probably suicide, and another person that comes on the other end. You know, like, again, I got a lot of clients who've been depressed, gained a lot of weight, and then somehow finally pull themselves up to get out that hole and to get here regularly.
Yeah, it really actually depends, but there's like this biopsychosocial approach.
What up, Joy? Go ahead.
And so we're considering the biology, right? So if there's no chemical imbalance or anything, just how are you giving yourself those happy juices, those happy neurotransmitters, the lifestyle that you're living too. We got psycho. So now we're talking about, what is it that you're dealing with? Is it stuff from, you know, like trauma from the past? Is it relationship stuff that's happening now, job? You know what I'm saying? That matters, so that has to be tended to. And social. you know, like you said, societal expectations, relationships, and all that other good stuff. So this is the way I approach anyway. It's just a holistic biopsychosocial, because some people they could get depression over, you know, things, vicarious trauma, watching what's going on TV and what's going on in other people's lives.
Right.
How do you cure that? You got to kind of figure that out with the person, you know, or they could be reacting to childhood stuff that keeps repeating in, you know, in their lives in certain ways. So it was really no one size fits all of how do people get out of depression. But I do know that holistically, they got to consider the entirety of themselves and really shift in some areas. And
let's just say, in that one, well, how do somebody even check themselves or self-assess? Or do people wait till it's too late to check in with themselves? Or is that just a person-by-person thing? Like,
I mean, you know, that's why, like, I put out content, you know, just to kind of put it in people's faces. Hey, reflect on yourself, because it's not always easy. Sometimes you look up and you don't even realize you've been depressed for weeks or months or whatever the case.
And that's the thing where you talk about more sleep or lack of sleep, and that's the thing where it's like, if it's not that, what could they contribute it to be like, oh, have low energy, or I'm just tired today? But then again, it's like, I just don't, I mean, again, for me, I'm always on the other side where it's like, I don't get how people, like, a month goes by and people not realizing, like, damn, this last month I really haven't slept, or
man,
like,
time is different when you're depressed. Time is different, or have depressive symptoms. You know, I know that anybody who watches this will understand what I'm talking about. You know, you're just trying to get through the days, and so you focusing on, okay, what I got to do next, what I got to do next, and then you look up when you do have that moment of reflection, and you see you just been getting through the days for, you know, for an extended period of time. So, you know, time is different, and again, remember biology. Depression is really one of those kind of illnesses that will zap the energy and the motivation out of you. So one of the main things that I try to work on with someone who I know has clinical depression is discipline. Give yourself something to look forward to. Make sure you're taking care of your basic needs. Make sure you're eating at the bare minimum. You know, top 3 important tasks.
Because that's what dude was talking about in the book. He was like, I couldn't muster up the energy to go to school. I couldn't even muster up the energy to get up to make a meal, then just to go lay back down and do it. And I'm just sitting there like, he was like, I'm trying to preserve energy to use energy for what I could. But that's the thing where it's like, somebody had said to me, I'm like, I don't know, I mean, you know me, mentally I don't get tired of talking about this stuff. Like, I'm in here dealing with different emotions and different people every day. But again, I don't never really understand like what makes me different than somebody else. Again, obviously, you know, I've done the work and obviously you've helped me. But and then me coming in, obviously I'm not the same person I am now, but I never thought I've ever been in that state where I just want to sit there and not do anything. I mean, again,
but you know, I'm glad that you're saying that, because depression doesn't look the same for everybody. You know, sometimes you have
because what's a functional depression person?
Yeah,
like
I don't. So like depression doesn't look like, you know, just wanting to lie in bed all day. It doesn't look like that for everybody. Sometimes some people, they do have high functioning, which means they do have the energy to go to work or do all of these other things, but their symptoms might come out through self-esteem. You know, their symptoms might come out through aggression or, you know, sadness or irritability and things like that, and it doesn't look like depression. It looks like this person has an attitude problem.
Right, and so that's what I'm thinking is just like, does that person not know how to control their emotions, or how would you even get, again, I guess going back to your point was like, you have to self-check in, because if you're functioning at a regular rate, but you letting everything get to you, is that still considered depression, or like, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you meet the criteria, you know, because a lot of those things of being angry or irritable or, you know, being distant, isolative and all that stuff, that stuff is a part of the criteria, you know, that we check for. So, I know you've seen a lot of times the celebrities on TV smiling, or, you know, they're look happy, and then the next thing you know, something terrible's happened, or they come out and talk about it.
Right, and that's the thing where it's just like, I mean, we were so pushed on this agenda to make sure, hey, get the house, get the car, get the family, get the money, and then all your problems go away.
Right.
And I'm sitting here like, to me, it's just like, okay, then what else do you deal with if you've accomplished everything that society has wanted you to strive for?
Your mindset.
Right? Exactly, and that's the thing where I was sitting there like, I think I've mastered my mindset to a point where it's like society is easy now. And so now it's like, again, I guess it's the question of balancing, or how do you balance trying to get rich or society or achieve those standards and also achieve your mindset at the same time, or do you work on one before the other? Like,
well, you know, it depends. It depends on where somebody is in life and what their values are, because maybe they don't see winning in society as the cars, this. You know, it really does depend on what a person feels is important to them, and that's one of the things that's important to kind of evaluate and reflect upon every now and then. Like, what's important to me? What needs are getting met? What needs aren't being met? Because it's going to look different for everybody.
right.
And I think that, you know, a lot of people have normalized being so disturbed that now it's just like, well, how do you know? Well, if you're waking up feeling like shit all the time, that's not normal. And
exactly, like even to muster up to, like, again, like I've heard stories where like people don't even want to take showers for days and sit there, and I'm just in there like, I don't ever. And again, I mean, you know me, like I haven't been through in my head a tragic loss where it's like that's hit me where I've been depressed. Obviously, I've had what people call, again, to me, they're not traumatic events, but obviously traumatic events happen to me. But it's just like, okay, but to me, I always felt like I did the work before anything happened to me. So when it did happen, I come talk to you once. All right, cool. Make sure that's my check-in, right? I know me 98% of the time, and then the other two, I'm like, I got to check in to make sure I'm not tweaking with you. But other than that, it's just like.
I mean, I think the important thing is because you've described depressive symptoms before.
Have I? I mean,
Yeah. You know, around the tougher times. Years ago,
but that's the thing where it was like, okay, right? Does that just mean I'm sad though?
But this is what I'm saying. So that period, but you can't get out of it no matter what you do. No matter how many books you read, no matter getting out, going to the gym, no matter none of that. Do you still feel that? Even when nothing is, when things are as peaceful as it is in here.
Yeah.
You know, that can drive someone up a wall. Like, yo, like, I'm waking up feeling like this. And this has been years ago. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And, you know, it really is learning how to regulate your mind, your lifestyle, and figuring out what it is that you need to really be paying attention to in a that way, you know. But again, like it really does look different in a lot of people. I know a lot of people who they present anxious, like hypervigilant and things like that, and they think, oh, I just have anxiety, but they actually depressed because the reason why they acting like that is because they feel like they're not good enough. You know what I'm saying? And self-esteem and hopelessness, and so they, you know, it gets.
And that's what I'm saying. It gets, to me, that gets complicated and deep because it's like, okay, people just want to use the word depression, but they don't understand what it truly can be. It's just like, at what point do they actually go get it checked, or somebody finally makes them aware of what's going on with themselves? Because I don't think a lot of people even have the capacity, or have the people around them with the capacity to understand, like, you all right? Like, all right, well, you're not yourself. You're not going through. I mean, obviously, you know, I've learned a lot from you, obviously, to kind of pick up on those things, but that's tough. I'm gonna give the mic to Joey. I want you just to describe, because I was, so what we were, you can put it on. So why I brought it up to you is because, again, what we talked about, I know you've been through depression, correct?
Yeah, I got diagnosed clinically at 14.
Right, so me, I never know what that feels like. Again, when I talked to her, because, you know, this that's just when I went to for therapy. I started when I was like 25. But I've never in my head ever went through what people have been clinically depressed. So go ahead, you can tell us your perspective on it. And I just, because again, I don't, in my head, I can't understand that mind. And I've been reading and books and shit like that, but I just never could understand it.
Yeah, you only know what you know, right? Exactly. Like your experiences, it's really hard to go through that. So yeah, 14, I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and the way that I describe it to people is you just can't get out of this hole. Like you keep digging and digging and digging.
What at 14 happened?
There was just a compilation of things, and then you could go back to like maybe it was like concussions that made it worse, you know, from hockey, all sorts of things. There was a lot of family stuff. I moved from Wisconsin to St. Louis. Okay. I was living with my dad while my mom was selling her house in Wisconsin. There was a bunch of other really bad family stuff. I think it was just this compilation that happened. Brand new school, went from a school of thousands of kids to a school of 400 kids in my class. So like I was the new kid in the whole school, not the new kid in the class.
Yeah.
Bullying, getting made fun of, this whole transition from being this like kind of popular kid to being the new kid to being made fun of. And then all the family stuff hitting at once. And then I just couldn't get out of it.
So what did that look like for you? Or what were you going through in action-wise? Like, was it, again, we talked about it like functioning depression people and just not having the energy to do it.
Oh, I literally, I stayed out of school for a week or two.
Really?
Like, yeah, the suicidal ideations, wanted to go, like my mom took me to suicide watch, literally. I wouldn't go to school, one, because of depression, two, because I was afraid I was gonna get beat up and bullied, and so there was so much there that I couldn't function. A lot of people are like, oh, just go to work and be at work. But when something is consuming you, you can't think of anything else. Yeah. It's like the other end of the spectrum when you're extremely happy. Right. Everything else not that big of a deal. Like, work sucks, but like life is good. I just got a bunch of, like, okay, all right, it's cool. Like, it's okay. So the same thing with depression. So like, it's really hard for people to understand that. And it's hard for me to understand people with anxiety. Like, well, but it's similar. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have anxiety. I have depression. So anxiety lives in the future, depression lives in the past. And that, I heard that quote, it's not my quote, heard that quote recently, and that just hit me. I was like, that makes so much sense. Because we're anxious for the actual event to happen. I'm anxious to come and train with you. But once you start doing it, like, oh, not that big of a deal. Why was I so anxious? But depression is like, oh, the past, or what's going to happen, or this is still there, and you've got all these thoughts that are just like weighing you down. So that's the best way that I can explain my depression, and everybody else's is different.
And then how did you get out of that hole?
I get out and I get back in. Just sometimes that hole is, like sometimes I can't explain it.
Does it ever leave you?
I say my depression is in remission.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes even when things are going really well, like when the book came out, I was doing all this sort of stuff. I'm like, money's good, book's doing well, on TV, like you should just be like, just be happy, you're good, should be good. Well, that's
not how it works.
Yeah. Like take a deep breath.
Right.
No, that doesn't fix it. Sometimes it just hits you and you can't explain it, but recognition and being aware of that, like, like whether you're in AA or recognizing that is the first step. So I tell everybody around me, like, heck, dude, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm not here mentally. Yeah. So whatever, like, it's not you. Yeah. But then that sharing also allows us to connect. Right. And that helps me the most. Yeah. So I know these things that will help me feel better, whether it's working out or going to the sun and sleeping well or playing with my kid. Right. That helps me feel better. Right. But it's not necessarily going to fix it.
And do you know what triggers you now, or just like, again, because even when I was reading that book, dude was like, one day I'm just back in this depressive state regardless of anything.
Yeah, it's triggered when there's really bad things happening at once, and then like it comes up. But it's like, is that just sadness or is that bad days? Right. I know when it's really depression, when things are actually going well and I can't explain it. Mm-hmm. I think that's when it really hits me. And then when things are bad, then it's really hard for me to get out of that. Okay. But then I recognize it. But now it used to last for weeks and months on end. At this point, it's, sometimes it's a few days, but.
And then what do you do to pull yourself out of it, even if you can't somehow explain how it comes back?
Yeah, just keep I try to maintain all the healthy habits. Okay. Sleep is number one, the nutrition, talking to my son, talking to my wife, talking to my family, talking to my mom, my dad. I'm close with my mom, so that, but it's wife and son, working out, sleeping well, and I know that if I go on a binge eating thing, I'm a big meathead. My binge eating might be 20 protein bars, no joke. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like crap, but I had 200 grams of protein. But then I still feel bad about myself. Where now if I know, like, hey, I need to have that ice cream, like, allow me to have it and not feel bad about it, then sometimes that makes me feel better. But yeah, it's just the activity and the habits that consistently I got to keep iterating. And then sometimes I'll check in. I do have a life coach.
Okay.
Every now and then I'll call her up. She's an intuitive life coach, so not like, I don't want to sit there and talk about how when I was 14 I got diagnosed with depression again. Like, I don't need to sit there and talk about all the bad things.
Right.
Like, what are the steps now that I can take? So she says, express, don't repress.
Okay, explain that.
So if I have, like, let's say I have an issue with you,
Right.
and I'm holding it back for weeks on end, and all of a sudden, like, I snap on you for one, like, you didn't hold the door open for me or something, like, dude, bro, that wasn't really it.
Right.
I've been repressing something that ticked me off about you. So express your feelings as opposed to suppressing them. That's helped me a lot, especially as, like, you know, big, like, straight man supposed to be, like, tough.
Right, and that's and that's why I just never, I don't know, like, again, mentally I just never, again, the symptoms, but I've just never been in that place. So to understand, like, life is going great, why do you feel that way?
Right.
It's
Just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, unfortunately, you go back, like, yeah, was it like 5, 6 concussions that were diagnosed on top of the amount of other ones, where I got back up, played again, like, you're okay, oh, you're woozy, you can't feel your hands, that's, you got another period left. Was it everything else? Was it a combination? I don't know. But I'm not trying to understand now, like, why. I just understand when it happens and how to try to get out of it.
Yeah, and a lot of what he's describing is the biopsychosocial. Like, you know, he's talking about, like, what's physically happened to his body, and the you know, what was happening in his life and changing his lifestyle and things like that. So that's why I say it's important that if someone is trying to reflect on themselves to see if they might be struggling with some depression, to really look at all of themselves. You know, have you sustained any have you sustained any injuries? What are you sleeping like? What are you eating like? Are you taking care of yourself? How's your relationships? Though that's a good way to, you know, every now and then just check in with yourself to check the temperature. So yeah. So he just kind of, you know, confirmed what I was saying.
Yeah, because I mean, I know your book and stuff like that. Because I just, again, it's wild to know, like, man, life is great, but then you're on the other side, like, man, this shit sucks. Like, just don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, but like me, like, what do you mean? It's
right.
You're like, oh wait, you can't go up and stand in front of thousands of people and talk. Like, it's no big deal. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, until you've experienced that, you can't ever really understand it. But like, you can read about it and stuff, and you're doing what you can to try to understand it, which is good. So then you can recognize those triggers in people, and then it's not personal.
Exactly. And I think I do a great job of that well, but it's more of like knowing a functional depression, be like, okay, what's really wrong with you? But then trying to understand where, okay, maybe you just don't know how to control your emotions. Are you not aware of it, or are you not aware that you're going through something or something? And I can always ask those questions to kind of understand to a point. But when it gets to that point, I'm just sitting there like, but life is good. Like, but again, the way I think, like, remember when you asked me, like, how's your day? Everybody's like, every day is a good day. Yeah. Because it's mentally, that's where I am.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing. I don't think it's about controlling emotions, because, you know, these are like automatic things that are popping up. It's about managing them. So what you're saying is, when I wake up, I manage my emotions. I kind of set a target, and I'm intentional about that. That's kind of one of the prescriptions that are told to people who are battling with depression, is like to kind of be a little bit more intentional, have that discipline, that going to the gym, of those lifestyle shifts, you know, but the emotions, they're going to come.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But then to me, it's like, do you have to act off those emotions? Because that's what I'm saying. I think I'm too logical to really ever feel what I'm saying. Like, I feel what I feel, but I never move off how I feel. Like, I could be mad. I'd be like, I'm just mad. Because I know how to control them so well. And that's the thing where it's like, I don't feel sadness because of me, in my head, being grateful for everything of where I am and where I'm at. So I just don't, in my head, have those negative emotions towards everything, because I've controlled to where life is still good. Like, I'm okay, and I'm grateful for every second I get on this earth, being around these people, having this thing. So it's just like, am I controlled too much to not let life flow? Like,
no, not everybody will experience clinical depression.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So it's just, you know, you might have some protective factors that that help you be resilient in certain ways. But, you know, people who have had depression or are currently going through depression, they don't want to, you know, kind of be in that place.
Of what?
You know,
like happiness?
No, not happiness.
Oh. To be depressed.
Absolutely would love to be happy. But in that depression, they don't have to. They're not saying, well, I feel this way, so I have to. There's a true energy zap, and it's true mental wheel that's happening that really distorts reality. So when other people are saying, look at the reality of things, they're currently operating from a distorted place that they're trying to, you know, ground themselves in. That's why it's like, you know, you really got to be careful with people, because you just never know what reality they're operating in. They could feel like nothing and have everything.
And that to me is just so wild. To be like, man, look, you got it all. What do you really show? And then, like you said, is it something in the past? Is it the way we grew up? Or, I don't know.
It could be a number of things.
You look at the body dysmorphia. You're like, oh, look, you're good. Like you're ripped. Whatever. Like no, I need. But still, you're looking in the mirror. And you're seeing a different person.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like when I'm really bad, all the things that brought me joy bring me less. You know, it's just this blunting effect. It's not as happy. Like I could make a bunch of money, I could do whatever, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild.
Yeah, that's that apathy. I forgot to mention that. That's one of the biggest things that people should pay attention to if they're noticing that something that they were once really passionate about, or something that would like increase their excitement, that they're no longer feeling connected, and not like all the way like a complete robot, but they're just less stimulated by the things that used to stimulate them.
But then to me that goes back to like motivation and faking it, where it's like motivation versus discipline. Like, yeah, I'm excited about doing this right now, and 3 weeks later you're just like, I don't want to do it anymore. So that's what I'm saying. Like the way I view it is so different, rather than, oh, this used to bring me joy, now I just hate this shit. Well, maybe you're just ready for a new chapter in life. Because I don't see it.
But that could be the case too. But it's not that you hate it. It's just that you're less stimulated by things on the outside, because you're so kind of consumed with what's going on the inside. So I could want to come and work out with you, but you know, if I'm just not stimulated by it, I'm not excited. It's just like me telling you to write me a 40-page paper. Right. You know, or in something that you like to talk about. Right. You know, so there's a lot of stereotypes about depression. So I'm really glad that you're sharing your story and that you're asking these questions, because it's a really complicated.
And that's the thing, where it's like in my head, I'm so grateful. And the other side of it, like again, like you said, I haven't experienced it like to that extent, so I don't know. Like again, I only see the external. I can only ask the questions until I know. Like, okay, now I know that you're going through something. But if I don't have the conversation with the person or just understand, I'm just in there like, okay, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like me. It's like I will never know what it feels like to be black.
Yeah.
As many like I mean, let's put it like as many like black friends or anybody that I have, they can explain it. I will never know that. And my buddy one time, we're at Starbucks, I got ticked off. I yelled at the manager. They gave me free drinks and stuff. I'm standing there, and he's a big, intimidating like black man, right? Yeah. And he's like, Joey, that's the difference. You yell at the Starbucks guy, you get a gift card. I yell, I get called by the cops.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Right? I can never understand. But like it helped me understand that and look at that situation differently, but I'm never going to know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good example, because, you know, we could offer all kind of, you know, examples or things like that, and that will deepen in the understanding, but you just have to remain curious.
Yeah, right? and that's the thing, where I'm like, when I get in the hole, like I'm gonna read something, like I'm gonna try to figure out like what does it feel like, and that's what I was telling her. I read that book on like this dude of like 31 days of a depressed mind. At the end of it, he ended up killing himself, but I'm sitting there like, okay, what is just going on in the heads of people, you know? And that's the thing, where it's like I feel like I have such. I was telling her 2 things I think I need to master. I don't know if you heard it. It was like you master mindset, then you master society. Where it's like I feel like I've mastered mindset to where nothing can move me what I haven't experienced yet, and then society's just making money and surviving. So that's why this is society's the easy part for me. I feel like I've done the work to master the mindset, to always be in a grateful mindset. Whatever happens, I'm still gonna be good.
Right.
So it was just like those 2 things.
Wow.
Yeah, important conversation, man.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. So he wrote a book on that stuff. Whatever. Yeah, you good, bro? No, he had just wrote a book on it. It's got the minimal method, but he does talk openly about his depression. So I know that'd be a perfect person, because even though it's like, look, you see him on the outside, like, man, life is great for you.
Yeah.
What do you really have to be sad about? But I get it when it's just like,
but you see how you ask that question, like, what do you really have to be sad about? Like, that has to be an open, like, pause and let the person tell you, because they might say something that will. You know, like, I can't believe that. But now you're seeing, and this doesn't mean that they're distorted in what they feel is wrong all the time, but it's just about the way in which they're processing whatever's happened to them might be distorted. So, you know, like, he gave an example of, like, if you know, you didn't hold the door for him or something like that, and he just
went crazy.
Well, he might have perceived, and this is just an example. If he was working through a particular mindset under depression, he might have perceived, you know, you closing the door as rejection or something, because he's been rejected in the past or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So what he's so upset about, it's not, well, you didn't hold the door for me. It's really this inner wound that's just been triggered, and I feel kind of helpless in it. And
that's the thing where I ask the questions like, all right, what's really going on? But that's the thing where I talk about, like, how many people do you really have around you that's really going to ask that question? Like,
that's fair.
You feel me?
Care about the answer.
Exactly. And I'll be really, you know, obviously, you know how I feel about it, where it's like I have to, in my head, in my profession, yes, I take care of the body, what we talk about. I still emotionally take care of it, even though, like, it's depending on me to want to take that on, in which I do, and I like it, but it's just understanding where it's like a lot of people aren't aware of that stuff. Like, why are you so upset about this? No, let's get to the deeper issue.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but most of the times they do. Like, I give them that safe space where it's like, no, I'm really curious about the answer. I really want to help you because I always tell people, like, if I can't change your mind, I can't change your body. And again, if you're holding on to something that happened emotionally, it might not be that you can't lose weight because you're eating right or because you're not working out. Maybe something's wrong with you, you're not sleeping enough, right? Taking enough water. What is your energy levels like?
And, you know, high stress levels produce cortisol, and that also impacts your weight.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing where I'm sitting there, like, people don't understand it, where it's like I had a girl where she was, she had two of her friends, well, one of her boyfriend and her best friend had committed suicide, like within like months of each other. And so she took our Scope 42 program, didn't lose no weight. And then she ended up buying like my online program, and we're talking one-on-one. I'm doing my consultation. I'm like, oh, how's your sleep? She's like, I'm not really sleeping. I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? And she told me what happened. I'm sitting there like, well, that's the issue. She's like, no, it can't be. I'm saying, look. And I bought her the book, Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson. And I'm just read this. If you're not going to believe me, fine. Just read that, do that. She did. She finally got from like 30 minutes of sleep, really like on and off, to like 4 or 5 hours.
That's awesome.
And wasn't even working out as hard, and ended up losing like 10, 15 pounds. I'm like, there it is. But again, as much as I can't explain it, I know obviously she's going through something. Like, look, I'm going to give you the information. It's your job to see if you really want to go down this path, to understand like that's just the issue. Obviously, you going through that grief is something that you're going to have to take on, but it's just like, look, that's just your issue. And then some people don't get as deep as that. Like, your normal trainer doesn't even understand that deep of the physiology of sleep to understand how it impacts your weight.
I mean, I think, you know, the understanding the importance of mental health when it comes to physical health, you know, it's all connected. I always say that.
And then it is funny because I seen a post where, I mean, again, I know some dude is selling stuff, but he was like, don't let your personal trainer one-on-one session turn into a therapy session. But I laughed, right? Because I'm sitting there like, I know it's targeted towards me because nobody else talks like the way I talk in our sessions. Like, I know that from like social media wise. Like, I've never seen nobody talk how I talk to my clients, or the things that we talk about, or if they do, they don't put it on social media, right? And I'm sitting here like, but you don't know what that person needs. I do. So I get it where it's like, oh, you feel like you're taking, they pay you for one thing, they come in for another. I said, regardless, if I'm helping them get towards a goal that they want, whether they need it for just this one session or a different one, why not?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's wellness. You know, it goes hand in hand. You have to know where someone is, and I'm not a physical nothing.
Yeah.
But you got to know what's, you know, going hand in hand with how someone is regulating what you're telling them to do. If you're telling them to, okay, this is your eating habits, this is what you got to do, but they don't have an appetite because they're depressed, or they're anxious, so they can't sleep and things like that, then that's going to get in the way.
Exactly.
So you gotta,
and I gotta go look through all of those small things in a short period of time to figure out like to figure out what's really going on, or what's really, and again, that's for them to trust me. But I get it when people try to sell a product, but I'm sitting here like, y'all talking to me. I'm the one in a million. Y'all can't be. I need to talk about me, but you will never understand until they get to that place themselves. Because it was like, it's hard for, it shouldn't be. To me, it's not hard, obviously, but it's like hard to be a personal trainer and a support system. But I'm like, does that make me different because I was willing to do the work, or just me being more aware than your regular personal training or personal trainer only worried about the physical side? But I'm sitting there like, I have a deeper understanding because I did the work myself too.
Well, I think that it is it's something that needs to be included.
Oh, for sure.
into physical work, because people who I have worked with years ago, it's about mindset. They will put all this work into working out and physical, and they will get their results and look amazing.
Right.
But they still on the inside haven't dealt with what's going on. And so, yeah, you got this physique, but you still feel like how you felt before you even started working out.
And that's what I told. I got this one girl, and that's the same thing. And that's the same thing I told her. I said, look, before you get to the body you want, I got to change your mindset now. So when you get there, you still don't feel like this person. And again, she's 18, so she doesn't get it yet. But I'm sitting there like trying to plant those seeds to be like,
Sure.
I'm gonna shit on everybody when I get there. Hold on now, relax. We're gonna get there, but I need you to try to change this now. So when you get there, you don't still feel like this other person.
Right. But you know what? Like everybody, there's all kinds of lanes, and people just pick the one they want to be in.
Right.
So some people might take a more, straight physical approach. Okay, cool. If that's your expertise, don't be tampering with people's brains. If you don't have the emotional capacity for that.
Right.
But I can absolutely appreciate how, just like in this time,
right,
mental health is becoming a coffee table topic,
right,
and it's being incorporated into this process. Because like people need people to be able to recognize when they off.
Yeah.
And not just physically, but absolutely emotionally. Like you said, depression. It can be the most invisible thing. You might not even know someone's depressed. They coming in smiling and
literally
fine, to you. But if you pay attention to how they're functioning, really, how they're feeling about themselves in their lives, it's a completely different story. So I don't think that everybody's going to be able to understand depression, and that's okay. It's not for everybody to understand.
And
it's for the people. It's for people who have the capacity that willing to support and create healthy space to understand.
Do it. Yeah, and that's why I like that I can do that, and that's what people separate me. I'm like, look, to me the physical is the easy part. I have to get the mind to move the body, and the body is going to do what I need it to do. But it's the mind, especially like we tell people, like the results aren't in here.
Right.
It's the other 23 hours that I try to get you to sleep, eat, make sure you don't stress, drink your water, take your stuff. So I'm sitting here like I'm trying to prime you for the only hour that I see you. I have to prime you for the other 23 hours. And again, I tell people, I see maybe people out 2-3 hours out of what, 186 hour week. Y'all got to understand what I'm trying to do in this time, and it might not be a workout that they need right there that primes them for the next time I see them.
Yeah.
Where like once I get them to do what I need them to do, be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So.
I wish people ask other people more often who they're concerned about. Like, what is it that you need?
Right.
How could I support you?
That's a good question. I don't think I ask motherfuckers what they need. Because I think people talk about more than what they want than what they actually need.
Well, that's
but is that the same thing?
I mean, it can help people figure out what it is that they need if they talk about what they want.
But are we talking about like needs and like emotional stuff, or?
Yeah, like sometimes people just might need a quiet day. They might need some time alone. They might need to just talk about something unrelated to what they are consumed with. You just never know, but I think the question will open up a good conversation. You know?
That's good, because I never ask people that.
Yeah, what you need.
Because even though it's like, I might know what they need before they know what they need, and be like, all right, this is the day we just talk, or this is the day where it's like, okay, you're in a good space, I can really push you physically.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, all right, and that's the thing where like I kind of read a little bit, but I do gotta ask more because I'll most likely be like, all right, I know what you need before what you need.
Yeah, a cool check-in I like to use is like a rater scale. What we at on the scale of 1 to 10.
Right.
And 10 being, you know, amazing, great, and
right.
1 being low. And I take out the 5 so people can't say 5 because
right.
now you're trying to
just say right.
Me on the question. You
exactly.
Know?
Right.
But then that kind of helps me gauge what we need to work on, or if I'm gonna push really hard or explore some stuff. So
I mean, I do that with jazz. I'm like, all right, what kind of day we gonna have today?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because I can tell when she comes in like up, and I can tell when she's sad, and that's why I tell her like, I'm a very consistent person. Whereas like I tell her sometimes like I don't know who I'm getting today. Like literally, I'm sitting there and sometimes she doesn't aware of it. I'm sitting here like, if you come into the session and we're talking and chit-chatting from the beginning, I know where it's at. If you're kind of quiet, I'm gonna play it off you, where it's just like, okay, what do you need? And that's how I kind of figure out what somebody needs or what space they're in for how I'm gonna approach them.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to know someone, and you're able to have like a healthy, intimate connection with somebody, you're able to gauge and you guys have conversations and stuff, so you know more. But sometimes you just have to ask, because not everybody, sometimes some people don't even know that they're presenting that way.
Right.
Until other people start to tell them. A lot of times that's how a lot of people realize that they're depressed. Other people are like, you're not yourself.
Right.
What's happening? You're not coming out, you're acting different, so sometimes you just have to ask if something else is right. Or even if they, especially those ones that come in, hey, always bubbly like, yeah, good, how you feeling? I'm good. Okay, what's good?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you don't have to be able to feel what they're feeling in order to be there, or kind of ask the right kind of questions. I think a lot of people need to know that. Like, you don't have to understand at all what a person's going through as far as depression, but getting them to talk about what they need, giving them a safe space to just be, and knowing that you're a space of support. Yeah, that's all you can do for the most part, Okay. So I appreciate you. Yeah, of course. Thank you for everything.